I welcome you all, basketball degenerates, to another episode of the Pass First, Shoot Later podcast, brought to you by the OC Basketball League. I'm your host, Zico Pepic, here with my partners in crime, Michael Van Wyck and Omar Almadine. What's up, guys?
What's up, Zico?
What's going on, guys?
Episode 2 here, guys.
Yeah,
And we made them a week apart. How long is that going to last?
consistent.
Yep.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. Well, we do have a lot to talk about if we want to start somewhere. There's breaking NBA news, which everybody's heard about. Zach LaVine has actually requested a trade. It's something that obviously has been talked about for a long time. He's a guy that's been on the radar for a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that have been linked to him, Lakers being one of them. We have to mention the Lakers as much as you don't like them, Mike.
Mike, the Lakers are always
man.
some kind of conversation, whether you like it or not. Get used to
Exactly.
it.
So
We've
yeah,
been like this.
it's interesting situation. We obviously had the same thing happen with James Harden. James Harden was traded. That was what kind of started this show. I love trade talk. When we get to the deadline, I'm going to be fired up. I'm going to want to do 3 episodes a week. I love the trade deadline. So how do you guys feel about this? I know it's always an interesting conversation when a player actually asks for a trade. So what do you guys think about, one, player demanding a trade or asking for a trade? 2, what do you think is going to happen? Where do you see this playing out?
I don't have a problem with people requesting trades. I mean, you sign contracts, you can talk through it. He's given them some time, but with anybody, you can ask for a trade all you want, whether or not they trade you. I think there's a different aspect going about it, how James Harden kind of tanks. I think that's ridiculous. You still got to be a professional, but you can ask for a trade and still go out there and play basketball.
I agree with your point. I agree with your point, Mike. But at the end of the day, just asking for a trade just puts a big red flag or question mark at the team's chemistry and how they're gonna, go work until the trade happens. It just lets guys know that you don't want to be there. Are they going to have the same fighting spirit when you're not asking for a trade? It kind of puts a damper on the team's morale.
Yeah, but you think about these things, and how many times did he ask for a trade? Quietly, not in the limelight, if you will. Went to his GM, coach, whatever, and just said, "Hey, this isn't working out. Let's find something for me."
That's true. We don't know.
So
we don't know, but knowing who his agent is, I doubt anything was done quietly.
Yeah, I mean, losing sucks, and they've been losing a lot.
Well, the interesting thing to me regarding this is the ramifications it's going to cause. I think the Bulls are going to go into full tank mode. And so LaVine is the one who requested the trade. This team is probably going to revamp the entire roster. I think at this point, if LaVine is traded, DeRozan is up for grabs, Vucevic is up for grabs, Caruso's up for grabs. They might be able to keep someone like Kobe White and Patrick Williams and build around that. But I think that this is one of those situations that when a team starts doing this, it's going to be a dumpster fire. I don't know how many of those guys actually sit on the roster until the trade deadline. I think you're going to see most of them gone before that. Maybe 1 or 2 gets held on till the deadline because they're harder to trade. But all those guys are the type of players who are on, aside from LaVine,
yeah, but I mean,
reasonable contracts, and they're going to be valuable assets to playoff teams.
You look at those guys, and I agree with your last point. I mean, they're going to be an asset to a playoff team, but none of them right now where they're at is a leader of a team. Zach LaVine's good; he's a highlight reel, but he's not gonna go in there and be your number one guy. I think they brought in DeMar DeRozan, who great career, but he's on the tail end of it. He still puts up points, but he's not who he was, right?
He's still consistent though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That's why I said he'll be an impact player for a playoff team.
But the problem is he's on the last year of his deal. So the thing is, Chicago, whatever team's going to trade for DeMar, they need a guarantee that he's either going to stay there, otherwise they're giving him up for free.
I think that depends, Omar. I think it's a team that's on a title cusp. Example being the team I could see trading for DeMar is the Heat. I think Zach Levine's making $40 million. He's got 4 years remaining on his contract. DeMar DeRozan is making $28.6 million with 1 year on his contract.
Right.
That deal is an easier deal to make a trade for. So I could see a team like the Heat doing the deal, not caring if he stays or not. I think they're banking on him staying if they make that deal for him. And I think they benefit from it. They did lose a lot of depth this offseason, losing Gabe Vincent, losing Strus. So I can see a team, I can see a team like them, like making a deal for someone, and if he stays, he stays. If he goes, he goes, and being okay with it. So Zach LaVine's the one to me that's the hardest to move. It's $40 million. It's a lot to match.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with you. That's a lot, especially the salary cap and teams trying to match salaries.
and I don't think Zach LaVine's a $40 million player.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, I'll go back to DeRozan. DeRozan may have been that guy, right? But he's 34 years old now. He takes, if you want to go into numbers and all of that, Omar, your favorite, the guy leads the league in mid-range shots, which nobody really does anymore. And if you do them, he used to do them at a high percentage, but now he's what, 35% on the season. That's not going to get it done from field goals. If he's shooting threes 35%, sure, maybe you have a case that, okay, he's shooting pretty good, even though 35 isn't great anymore from three, but 35 from the field isn't good for the guy leading the league in mid-range for the past 4 seasons, right? And Zach LaVine, he got popular for dunking, and he can score, but he's not going and locking down anybody. He's not going to be your number one guy. He's just, in my opinion, not going to be that guy.
He's not a build a franchise around type of guy.
Yep.
So like you said, he's overpaid with his $40 million salary, but this is the new NBA, so we got to take that into account. Salaries are a little, inflated, right? We live in inflation, so all salaries inflated. That 40 million we're looking at is what we used to consider a 15 to 20 million deal back in the day.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think that we have to remember that that's not a max contract. Max contracts are around $50 million a year now. So example being, had it been $30 million max contract, Zach LaVine's sitting like around 20 to 22 million, which is a reasonable contract for
or 18.
Number 2/3 option on the team. And I think that Zach LaVine on it as a number 2 or 3 option on a good team is a good fit, depending on who gets traded for. But for me, the one thing I want to look at is just like the idea of what teams would have to give up just to get someone like him at that $40 million mark.
Well,
and I mentioned the Lakers are one of the teams that are interested. So like, just think about this. If the Lakers would pull that deal, you'd probably be giving up D'Angelo Russell, who makes $17.3 million, Rui Hachimura, who makes $15.7 million, and you'd have to throw in someone to balance the money, and it's probably going to be your rookie that you just drafted, Jalen Hood-Schifino. So you're giving up Schifino, Rui, and D'Angelo Russell for Zach LaVine.
And you're still going to probably need to throw in another player because you got to make those salaries match.
That would put you at making the deal. So
I'm not making that trade.
Like around 37 million.
How does Zach LaVine help the Lakers, who don't have a point guard then if you get rid of Russell, and they don't have the size in that stretch, and Rui? I mean, that's a silly trade. And playoff, I think there's very few playoff teams who would benefit from Zach LaVine. I mean, even if you look and you try to just stretch one for one, forget the money, you put him in Denver. You're not going to trade Michael Porter for him. He doesn't help the team in that way. You're not getting rid of Jamal Murray for him. He doesn't help the team. You're not getting rid of Aaron Gordon. I mean, the teams that are in the playoffs, who are you getting rid of to bring in Zach LaVine that helps?
I think you'd be looking at a situation similar to what Phoenix has. Phoenix has Durant, they have Booker, and they have Beal. And after that, they don't have much. Nurkic is a really good 4th option for them. I think teams would be looking at that. My whole thing with you, Mike, is I don't think that wins it. Does that put the Lakers over the top? I think the only way that would put the Lakers over the top is if somehow a veteran free agent point guard gets bought out. That's like too good to be true and then helps put them over the top. So I agree with you. I don't know if Anthony Davis, LeBron, Vanderbilt, Zach LaVine, and Gabe Vincent wins you a title. So yeah, that's not beating the Nuggets, right? Especially
No.
defensively. So
Well, looking back at the Lakers here, I just want to point out the players that you just mentioned, except for the rookie, can't be traded until December 15th.
correct.
And so the thing is,
Which
with
is
the
right around the corner.
well, that's a month from now, but a lot can change in the NBA trade talks in a month.
It's less than a month.
And he could not get traded. Just because you asked for a
I
trade
think he
doesn't mean they're trading you.
I think he will. I think you're going to see a lot of this team get blown up because the way the Chicago Bulls are losing, the one thing like Omar mentioned is morale starts to drop. No one's going to want to be there anymore. So like what you're going to hurt your rookies, or your young players sitting on that team. If your team is losing, guys don't want to be there, guys aren't playing hard, bad attitude in practice, whatever it might end up being. So I think they're going to have to make a move, and they're probably going to take a deal they're not going to be that happy with.
Besides Kobe White, what young player do you think is going to be a game changer or somebody that?
There's no game changer, but
they don't really have anybody to build around. That's
saying.
the thing about Chicago. So, like Zico mentioned, their trades are going to have to come with some vets.
They're going to want short contract, and they're going to want draft picks. They're going to want to build something.
You're not
exactly, because right now they have nobody to build around.
You're not getting that for LaVine. I think the Heat might have the most interesting option just because they have the expiring contract from Kyle Lowry. They have a couple of young options who they could throw in there. Nikola Jovic is one of them. And I think they have one other young player on that team that might entice the Bulls, but it's still Miami Heat will be put in the same situation. Is a team of Jimmy Butler, Zach LaVine, Tyler Hero, and Bam going to win it for you?
Nope.
I mean, at that point, do they have enough basketballs to go around? Because Zach LaVine, is he going to fit Miami's, style of play and their core, the way they play together, they trust each other?
I will say I am a huge Spoelstra fan. I love old school, hard-nosed coaches. Spoelstra is one of my favorite coaches. If I could play in the NBA, I want to play with Spoelstra. If somebody's going to make it work, he's going to make it work.
Yeah,
you're talking to a guy who sure can score in bunches. He's not going to be that high level defender.
Agreed.
He's not like he makes threes, and he makes threes at a very high percentage compared, but not, but he
doesn't fit Miami.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What does he bring to Miami that Miami doesn't have right now that he can actually make a difference?
Nothing.
Actually, I will say this. When we watched the finals this last year, one of the issues that Miami had was scoring. When Jimmy Butler starts getting burned out, chasing players over and over again, when Bam is guarding Jokic and taking body contact every time down the court, those guys burned out. Tyler Hero didn't step up consistently. Duncan Robinson didn't step up consistently. I think if you have a go-to scorer in those situations, like Tyler Hero is great. I don't think he's Zach LaVine good. I think that you're going to put that third guy on the team where you could give him the ball and let him go to work. I think they hoped Kyle Lowry would be that. Kyle Lowry is just too old at this point to provide that.
So are you putting Kyle Lowry in that trade for Zach LaVine?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how you make the money work.
That's the only way the money's going to work is putting
him in. That's the only way it's going to work. Exactly. I think you'd probably be looking at something like Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, and then
you'll probably throw in like an RJ Hampton type guy.
Exactly.
Let's see if
you can make that trade, but that doesn't. Miami's still not winning anything. They're not coming out of the East.
Well, according to ESPN Trade Machine, that trade that Zico just suggested right now results in 4 extra wins for the Heat versus three losses for Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely will. I mean, at this point, Kyle Lowry is a shell of himself, and Kyle Lowry would be the kind of guy who's bought out and goes to a title team to help them. So
So if that trade happens, right? We're talking about. I mean, I know we're going off subject here. Miami's not in the Central Division, but because we're talking about the Zach LaVine trade here, so I think it's relevant. You trade away Kyle Lowry. Who's Miami's point guard now?
that's what I mentioned. They'd be stuck in the same boat as the Lakers if they make that trade. Giving up your point guard, you're going to.
What the Lakers got Gabe Vincent. They're not going to put him in that trade. So getting rid of D'Angelo gives the trust into Gabe Vincent, right? Into saying, okay, look, we trust that you could be our starting point guard. Now wake the hell up.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It just the Heat did start Tyler Hero at point guard to start the season. He did get hurt, but they were playing him at point guard, starting point guard, and bring Kyle Lowry off the bench. So I could see the Heat doing that. They have so many guys that could handle the ball. Jimmy brings the ball up half the game anyway. You know, Gabe Vincent was a starting point guard last season, but he wasn't handling the ball the entire time.
No, it's their offense. I mean,
Yeah,
they got a vet in Josh Richardson who can play the point. They also got a guy on a two-way contract, Drew Smith, who played point for the Miami Summer League team. So they could probably make it work, like you said. But again,
if anyone would make it work, I think it's Spoelstra. Like that's the one trade where I'm like, I don't know if it puts them over the top. I don't know if that's what they want to do to use their assets to make a deal. I don't know if there's someone else they're eyeing. I just keep looking at it, and I just don't know who else would trade for for Zach LaVine. Like if you look at the teams that he's rumored to ask to want to be traded to, it's the Lakers, it's the Heat. Sacramento's one of the teams that he also mentioned. I don't know if they have the assets to make it work or if they have the assets to want to make it work. The only other team I can maybe see like deciding to pull the trigger is the Dallas Mavericks to give, Kyrie and Luka a third scorer. But does that work?
No, I think the Heat, if you're getting rid of Kyle Lowry, makes them the most sense if he's going somewhere. And like I said, that gives them a home court playoff game to start, and they get out of the first round and then they're losing.
Yeah. So just looking at it, the Mavs could trade Tim Hardaway, Rashawn Holmes, and Maxi Kleber and make the deal work. And they could do it right away. So basically Rashawn Holmes and Maxi Kleber haven't been playing this season. You'd be basically trading Tim Hardaway Jr. for Zach LaVine.
And I don't think if I'm Chicago, that's not a fair trade.
I mean, Chicago's still going to want something back, and we could probably talk about trades all day, but
they're not. My own thing is I don't think they're going to get it. They might get a couple draft picks out of any of these deals, but I don't think they're going to get what they're dreaming of and hoping for. And I think they get more out of the other guys than they will out of LaVine.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, I mean, like I know, Mike, you said we could do all these trades, but the third team that we didn't talk about that Zach LaVine has put his interest in is actually Philly.
Right.
Which I think
also make the deal.
Which Philly has a lot of players here that they can make the deal with that can bring value. I mean, you're looking at this point, is it time for Philly to move on from Tobias Harris?
I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
I think Cog.
Huh?
He's too important as a defender on that team for them to make that deal. If they still had some of the young guys that they traded away, then maybe I could see it happening, but I just don't see it happening. I think if they make the deal, they're sending out Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, and Robert Covington, who they just got in the Harden trade.
Yeah, and they just got rid of Harden, who likes to pound the ball and slow it down and do all these things with the ball. And that's LaVine's obviously not at the level of Harden as far as pounding the ball, but he slows the ball down too.
Well, actually, Mike, I'm going to disagree with you a little there. One thing I like about Zach LaVine is he's actually a pretty elite shooter. He's one of the best shooters actually in the league. I don't know. I'm going to go back and check his stats right now, but his 3-point shooting
I believe it was 37%.
Yeah, he's shooting 37% right now from three.
And that's why I mentioned but he's not.
The ball's stopping there.
He has a good 3-point percentage, but he's not, like we talked about, like he's not known to be he's actually shooting 34. Last year he was at 37. So his 3-point percentage has dropped this year, Zico. I mean, he's shooting 43% from the field, 34 from three.
Well, I think some of that has to do with the last few games after asking for that trade. So
But definitely, I mean, Philly might be the team, but the problem is here is because of his big contract, any team that has to make the money work is not giving Chicago the value that they're looking for outside of possibly the Lakers. With Rui and D'Angelo, guys that are considered starters. You know what I'm saying? On a potential, playoff team or championship team.
yeah, that's why I mentioned that trade first. I think that's the one trade where it's like they could at least the Bulls will be able to put a decent roster out, for their fans. It'd still be a bad team. They're not making the playoffs, which will help them with the draft pick. But I think if they try to sell D'Lo, Kobe White, Rui, Patrick Patterson, I think that's a little more palatable than Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nicholas Batum.
So you guys, you think this sounds? I'm gonna go out of nowhere with this, but Anthony Davis going back to Chicago where he's from.
Not at this point.
Good trade. I mean, say what you will about Anthony Davis. Obviously, I've told you that he's not that guy, but you're not going to trade him for Zach LaVine.
No,
That's
but I'm not talking about straight up. But if you put a trade package around both of those, you could probably slide Vucevic in that trade to give Lakers back a big.
It's not going to win you the title.
Yeah,
the only way you're doing that,
better than AD.
Yeah,
but
it's not going to win. If you make the only way I'm making a deal for AD is if Joel Embiid or Jokic ask for a trade and they want to become Lakers. Like I just don't see.
The window's a little bigger for people I would trade AD for, but
yeah, but like I'd have to be center for center at this point because who am I? I'm going to start Jackson Hayes or Christian Wood the rest of the season. I don't want to watch that, to be honest. I don't think there's any chance of them helping us win a title if I trade AD for anyone else.
What if you got AD for Giannis?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, but
okay. I just wanted to
play center. He could play center.
Yeah, okay. Just
he can actually guard Jokic. You just named one of the few guys that might bother him a little bit. So
let's spend 2 minutes on the worst team in the league real quick. Talk about Detroit. Get that out of the way.
Oh, I mean, Detroit. Detroit is in the same position almost every year since we can remember.
Since they beat who?
Okay, we're not going there right now. Okay, but the bottom line is they're young. They have a lot of talent there, but they're a pretty young team.
The thing for me about the Pistons is they have a lot of nice potential on their team. They try to build their roster like they're going to win now, which I just don't get it. They paid Bojan Bogdanovic $20 million a year. They traded for Joe Harris, who's making $20 million a year. They traded for Alec Burks, who's making $10 to $11 million a year. They have like this weird. They try to like put some veterans next to their young guys to help them develop. I don't like the way they did it. I love their draft pick this year, Ausar Thompson. I really like Cade. I think Cade, he's everyone touted him as being like the next Luka. He's not going to be, but he's going to be a really good player. I think you have nice pieces. I just think the roster is so poorly constructed. There's redundancy with positions. You have pieces. I think what they have to do is decide who they're building with going down the future and just move pieces for better fitting pieces. So for me, if I was the GM of this team, I don't think the coach is an issue. I don't think all the players.
It's his first year there, so you gotta.
Even Dwayne Casey last year, I don't think he was at fault. He just had a really poorly constructed roster. And if I was this GM and I'm building this team, I'm building around Ausar, I'm building around Cade, and I'm building around Duran. I think
And you can't forget about James Wiseman. I mean,
I can forget about James.
Yeah, I don't think he's
Sorry,
gonna be. I don't think he's gonna be what everyone wants him to be.
I mean, we still haven't seen it. I mean, he was buried on that bench in Golden State, and he was supposed to get a good look here, but the game is not helping these bigs, especially bigs that don't shoot from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna backtrack on that. I don't think the game is an issue. I don't. And here's an example. There's bigs who are benefiting from it. If you look at some of the Jalen Duren is one of them. He's one of the bigs on this team, and he's playing phenomenal. He actually, I don't think he will get it, but I think his name could be thrown into most improved player of the year with the way he started the season. Obviously, he has to continue it. If you watch the way he's played, he looks like a kind of player who could turn into a Bam type of player, which I love centers like that. He could guard multiple positions.
Mhm.
He's only 19 years old. His body's still developing. Why is the game helping him as a player, as a center who can't shoot, but it's affecting Wiseman? And another guy who's the same age group, Sengun from Houston Rockets, who's another most improved player option that they'll be talked about down the year. There's young guys who can do it. We're not great shooters, but they're effective. James Wiseman, for me, I hate saying it, but I'm wondering if there's a mental aspect to this where he's not developing because he thinks a little highly of himself or too highly of himself because he was the #1 draft pick, which happens a lot to #1 picks. I hate calling them busts because there's always the opportunity for them to come back, but you were with the Golden State Warriors practicing with those guys, playing next to Draymond Green and practicing with them every single day, watching Clay and Steph do all their workouts, and you couldn't get time, you couldn't develop. He's playing for the Pistons now. He's still coming off the bench.
I mean, that's the same team you talk about that you have a problem with the fact that they don't have a big this season.
And I don't think James Wiseman was the right big for them.
Well, regardless, but you're talking about the team right now that is telling you we're trying to win right now with a 6'7" center, right? And so
I think they have a better chance to win with the 6'7" center than with James Wiseman.
That's why he forgot about James Wiseman. That's why.
Yeah, that's why I forget about him. Yeah.
Okay. The bottom line is, you're right. It could be mental, and being around those future Hall of Famers, you know what I'm saying, and great players and the championships that they won, is you don't know how that's affect the young man mentally. And the fact that he was a first round pick, #1 overall pick, and never got to really see the floor like that. So yeah, it could be either, like Zico said, it could be the fact that he thinks highly about himself than what he is, or it could be something else from his time in Golden State.
Yeah, and you can't discount the mental side of it. I mean, look what happened to Ben Simmons. I don't think any of Ben Simmons' problem was physical ability. I don't think it's how bad he shot. I mean, every year you see the same film of him hitting jumpers in pickup games or practice or whatever it may be. It's just all mental.
Markelle Fultz, same thing.
Yeah, they need to go get that Restoic app.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's the Philly. I think that's the Philly problem, right? I think that's the Philly problem.
Omar, you didn't catch that. Shout out to Restoic.
Oh, shout out to Restoic. Absolutely.
One of our sponsors. So thank you.
Absolutely. But definitely, I mean, we talk about mental health here. I'm I'm big on mental health awareness, and it's not just in the game of basketball, but at the end of the day, mentally, if you're not there, you're not gonna produce.
Yeah,
I agree. And honestly, put it this way: the fact that James Wiseman is on that team, he has to compete with some other young, effective bigs. Duren is the starter on that team from day one this season. He's been the starter. He had to miss some games. Marvin Bagley became the starting center, and Wiseman still came off the bench. So, to me, that speaks. What is he doing in practice? What is he doing in practice? Monty Williams is that coach. He's one of the old school coaches, that is hard on his guys. If Wiseman isn't playing hard, he's not going to crack those minutes. And if Bagley came in and started those games where Duren wasn't able to go, to me, that's
it's questionable. I don't disagree with you on that. It's questionable, but again, like you mentioned, just looking at their roster, it's just assembled in a very, very, very weird way. We focus on one player here, but again, they're
Wiseman, Duran, Bagley, and Wiseman. What do you need all those guys for?
yeah.
That's it's nice to have depth, but like if you don't really know which one's going to be your starter and which one's going to be your backup and which one's going to be like which one is playing the 4 and which one's playing the 5.
I mean, you forget about Isaiah Stewart too.
I just said Stewart, Wiseman, Bagley, and
Oh
Duran.
yeah, 4 of them. You're right, 4 of them.
If you're going to play one at the 4, one at the two at the 4, and 2 at the 5, and play them together, fine. And that's your rotation. That's fine. But I don't see how that's gelling. Like I think Duran and Isaiah Stewart have been starting, and Bagley and Wiseman have been the 2 off the bench, and all of them I guess could be interchangeable. But it looks like Wiseman's the 4th option out of those 4.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in a couple years we're talking about some of these guys, and they've grown and developed, and maybe they're all in Detroit still, and they get it together. But
I mean,
it will be.
He played the most minutes thus far this season. Tonight at 24 minutes, he had 15 points.
Yeah, but look how many rebounds he had for a 6'11" center.
You're right. He only had 3.
Yeah, you can't have 3 rebounds. Muggsy Bogues can go get you 3 rebounds.
And has. In an era where the centers were elite.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But all right. That's enough.
I do want to mention one more thing. Ausar Thompson is having a really interesting season. I'm a big fan of this kid. I don't know if you guys have watched any of the games. I did watch him play. If you look at some of this guy's stats, they're just unreal. I'm going to his stats right here.
Yeah,
averaging 11.8 points, 10.3 rebounds, 3.5 assists as a small forward. 6'6" small forward for this team. He's a rookie, double.
And that's why the Wisemans and the Bagleys ain't getting the rebounds, Zico, is because Thompson has 10, 10, 8, 16, and 13 his last 5 games.
Also include 1.8 blocks and 1.2 steals a game.
He's making up that difference. I know they're 2 and 12, but you talk about from a stat line point of view, that's where those rebounds are going, because he's double-digit rebound come from the small forward spot.
Yeah, well, when you're a big man who can't shoot, you better steal those rebounds from your small forward who can score, because otherwise you're on the end of the bench, and that's where
but the thing he's averaging 11.6. I get it. He's averaging a double-double. But if you look at his last 5 games, and I like the guy, so I'm not even trying to knock him, but you brought up scoring, Mike. He had 9, 9, 21, 9, and 12. So really, he's not scoring like that.
Ausar Thompson?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's kind of like the Scotty Barnes mold type of player where he's going to fill a stat sheet all over. He's not a number 1 option, but he's the kind of guy every team wants in their team. He is elite defender already. Elite defender. He's 1.8 blocks, 1.2 steals as a rookie, along with the 10 rebounds, and he's 6'6". He's the kind of guy you throw on the other team's best player, whoever it might be, perimeter player, and the guy's he's a competitor. And by the way,
for example, against the Clippers,
Omar, you're talking about rebounds. Duran, 12.6 points, 10.6 rebounds, 3.1 assists a game as well, along with a block and a steal.
Sounds like a good guy to trade Zach LaVine for.
Salary's throwing that up.
Yeah, I know.
Zach's not going to Detroit, bro.
I'm aware.
Okay, we can move on.
Let's go to Cleveland. What do we think of Cleveland right now? What are they? The 8th seed right now, 7-6, just barely above 500. 3-game win streak though.
Omar, you want to talk about Cleveland first? I know you're a little more excited about them than I am.
Probably
I thought. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily excited about him. I thought that was a great pickup for them to sign in Max, giving them that perimeter shooting with not have to, that catch and shoot. That's one thing that I would say they lacked is a catch and shoot guy. Chris LeVert is more of a ball in the hand guy. Darius Garland's gonna, be more ball dominant. I thought that was gonna help them. They're young still. They're still young. I mean, they do have some vets on there, but vets that are not really playing.
Yeah, I mean they only have 3 dudes over 30: Ricky Rubio, Tristan Thompson, Georges Niang. The rest of them are all.
And we know Ricky Rubio's taking a leave of absence right now. Tristan Thompson, God, I don't even know why they signed him. I think that was just a favor. Probably needed to pay child support or something.
Wow.
But
I
Gotta
don't
be
think
careful
that guy
about-
needs to pay child support. I think he gets that child support.
but yeah, they're young. I mean, they're young, and I thought that was going to be a big signing for them as far as off ball shooting from the outside. But it's interesting to me about Cleveland is, they drafted Imani Bates and sending him to the G League. For a team that young, I'm surprised that he's been productive. He was productive in summer league and preseason.
I think they tried to build a small ball team that just isn't prepared for that. I mean, they got Evan Mobley at 6'11", Damian Jones at 6'10", and then
And
a couple 6'9" guys.
Jared Allen. They're
Jared
starting.
Allen 6'9". Yeah,
Yeah,
He's bigger than 6'9". I mean, maybe it's his fro that does it, but him and Evan Mobley have length. They're both
yeah.
about
But
6'9".
you still don't have that dominant big man in the middle. Jared Allen, yeah, he's long, he can jump, he can do that. But after that, like I said, you got a bunch of 6'5" guys that kind of play the same. I mean, Donovan Mitchell can go get you buckets, obviously. Why am I blanking on his name? Right, Darius Garland can go score the ball.
well, that's what I'm saying. The offense is coming from their two guards. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But you'd think offensively with those two dudes that you'd be scoring enough points. They're what, 25th in the league right now in offensive rating.
Yeah, and Donovan Mitchell is almost averaging 30.
Yeah,
And
that's not going to get it done. It's just not. I mean, again, I think the East is
I'm gonna put a dagger
heavy.
on this right now. I'm gonna put a dagger on this right now. I think that Donovan Mitchell is gonna ask for a trade. I don't think I think at some point he's gonna realize that there isn't the future that he's hoping for in Cleveland. I think there are multiple pieces away. I think the team is good. I just don't think he's gonna win a title with them. I think a lot of people got hyped up with Cleveland last season. I saw so many reports this season, power rankings with them as the 2 or 3 seed in the East. I don't see that happening. A lot of people think it's them in Boston. I don't, especially come playoff time. This is the kind of team I think they could beat. I think the Knicks showed that last season. If you put 2 perimeter defenders on those 2 guys and you nullify the bigs, if you have bigs that can bang with them, I don't see the ceiling that they're hoping for with that duo. I think Mobley is going to be a hell of a player down the line, but I think he's too far away for Donovan Mitchell to use.
And I don't think Evan Mobley will finish his career in Cleveland.
I think Cleveland overachieved last season, similar to Sacramento. I don't think they're going to repeat that. I think some of that is age because they are a relatively young team, like we said, but they're just not going to get it done. I don't think that they're going to they're definitely not on anyone's radar as far as, oh no, we're worried about them. They're going to be a dark horse. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to go on the road, maybe steal a game or 2 and be out in the first round, depending on who they get seeded against.
I will say this, the team as constructed, with the salaries, with the roster that they have, with the types of pieces they have, they are capable of making a move that could put them in better position to contend. I have to wait and see. They're going to have to give up something. I feel like Jarrett Allen might be the guy they have to give up to make something happen. Especially if you keep Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, and Garland. But again, I'd have to see what that deal is. Off the top of my head, I can't think of somebody that would be a deal breaker where I could say, oh, they're a title contender now. They could beat Boston. I just don't see it happening right now.
I don't see how any trade would benefit them into beating Boston or even Milwaukee at this point. Again, since LeBron left there, Cleveland's been trying to figure out a way to get back to the mountaintop, and I don't
Yeah.
see it happening unless you trade Zach LaVine there.
Somebody born today will be in Cleveland 20 years from now, maybe making a difference, but no one's there yet.
Yeah.
You know,
And they got to be born there because nobody not born there wants to go there.
yeah. Unless LeBron decides to retire there and bring his kids with him.
No.
You know,
Whoever drafts Bronny next season, that's where LeBron retires.
and that's what I'm saying. Only Cleveland makes sense for them.
Cleveland ain't getting that draft pick.
I wouldn't bet on that. They have
Why
the,
you think?
this is one of the things I mentioned. They have the pieces to make a draft pick work, Mike. Like they have the pieces to get that draft pick. Like they could be something like that where they make a trade, and I don't know if 40-year-old LeBron is the game changer for this team winning it.
No, he's not. But
Although Jared Allen, Mobley, LeBron, Donovan Mitchell, and Garland is pretty cool, but again, you'd have to make it work somehow.
LeBron's going to hog the ball, and then that means Garland's going to become a catch and shoot guy, and then Evan Mobley's going to shoot threes from.
Not that LeBron's feeding Bronny. The end. All right, move on.
Yeah. Let's talk about Indiana.
This is the one I'm waiting for. This is the one I'm excited for.
One of the best up and coming point guards in the league.
Indiana.
Tyrese Halliburton. Guy is playing out of his mind right now. Leading the league in assists. The pace, I think he's only behind Jokic in terms of plus minus difference for his team when he's on and off the court. I think I read something like 23 plus 23 difference for when he's on the court, and there's I think Jokic is like 24 or something like that. So the guy is just playing unbelievably well.
His percentages are high.
Yeah.
They have the most point. They have the highest offensive rating in the NBA right now, which is insane.
And he's averaging 24.7 points, 12.5 assists, 4.2 rebounds, 1.1 steals, 0.7 blocks. His pace is unreal. He was playing so fast last season. He's playing faster this season. Some of that might be due to his teammates. I think Mathurin is really starting to develop. He's averaging 13 points a game. Miles Turner's having a solid season. He's averaging 18. I think his numbers were down last season, but this season he's playing really well. And if you look at the team top to bottom, he's got 8 guys averaging double figures. So, and then right below that,
he's getting everybody involved. He's doing his job there, and guys know that he's gonna, make the right play.
Yeah, but that falls back into the same old thing that I've said. They don't play defense. They're letting up almost 120 points a game. I don't care how many you score. You'll do fine in the regular season. You're not going deep in the playoffs. But we can go back to the same thing. They're still a young team. They got a lot of time to develop. Like you said, Halliburton's playing great. It's only 23. Miles Turner benefits a lot from Tyrese Halliburton's assists. He's getting most of them. You got some other guys. We went over the whole Obi Toppin kind of talking with Julius Randle back in New York and getting here. He's not really, I don't think at his full potential, but still not going to be that guy. But yeah, they're a young team who just wants to put on a show.
He's kind of funny to me that he's playing next to Tyrese Halliburton, and he's not doing more. For a guy who runs the floor as well as he does, you'd assume he'd at least be averaging 15 points a game. But I want to mention
you did say there's multiple players in double digits here, and that somebody's going to be affected by that.
Right. I do want to say this about this team. So, Mike said like they don't play defense. Obviously, they're not built to win. I agree with that, Mike. There's one thing I will say about this team, is they're another team that's in a position to make a deal to improve the roster. And I think they're going to. I think come deadline, I think
the spot on this team that needs to be addressed is the power forward spot. You know, they brought in Obi Toppin thinking he's going to be the game changer. Obi's a fun player. I love watching him dunk the ball. I love watching him on open fast breaks. He's a poor defensive player. He's not a consistent offensive player. And also he's a little small at the 4 spot. I don't think he could bang with any of the bigger power forwards. But if you actually put Obi Toppin and Buddy Hield's contracts together, which are both expiring deals, that comes out to about $27 million.
Yeah, would you rather keep Buddy Hield or Bruce Brown? Because Bruce Brown's their highest paid player.
I would keep Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown's playing amazing for the team right now. He's starting next to Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin, and I love that trio. I think they're playing so well together. They just know how to read each other. Bruce Brown also can play a little of the point guard position, so he kind of takes a lot of pressure off of Halliburton. When teams start focusing on Halliburton and, you know, dedicating their entire defense to stopping him, when you have a guy like Bruce Brown who can offset some of that, I think he's too important.
Yeah, who are you talking about packaging those guys for?
Okay, so example being one of the issues that we just talked about with this team is defense. So if I were to go get a power forward who's going to be a defensive-minded power forward who would kind of fit with this roster, and that's available, Jeremy Grant from Portland is one guy who's an option. He's going to be available for trade. They've already talked about moving him at the deadline to a team that might be interested in him. He's making $27 million a year. Buddy Hield and Obi Toppin for Jeremy Grant improves this roster. You have another power forward who's going to run and gun, who can play defense, guard the opposing perimeter players probably better than anyone on this roster, has a high motor, and probably would fit so well next to Halliburton. I think he'd be a huge improvement to Obi Toppin. Is that a title team? No, but boys in the East, honestly.
So you're thinking more of a fast-paced power forward, a guy that can run the floor, somebody that can run the floor.
I mean, the dream is like Pascal Siakam, but I don't think you're getting him.
No. Because if we're talking about focusing on just their defense.
Although Toronto sucks, still can blow up their roster.
Yeah.
You said what?
We'll get to that one. Toronto needs to blow up the roster as well, but we'll get to that.
Oh, that's a different day.
Yeah, different division. What were you going to say?
I interrupted you.
I was going to say, because if we were talking about a power forward, because, you know, one of the biggest issues we talk about Indiana is their defense, right? And we're talking about a power forward is what they're missing is, would you go after Jaren Jackson from Memphis?
I don't think he's available, dude. I just don't see that happening. Why would Memphis move him? You know, you've got Ja's not there right now. And when he comes back, you're building around Ja and Jaren Jackson. I just don't see that being available. And if I'm Memphis and I'm trading Jaren Jackson, is Obi Toppin and Buddy Hield getting that done? I don't see it happening. The other guy that's an option actually is Kuzma. You know, I could see Washington kind of blowing it up little by little.
No defense.
Remember when everybody liked Kuzma more than Ingram?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Kuzma fan, but I could see that working. There was a report on Bleacher Report that talked about that as a potential trade for the Indiana Pacers that I read, and I could see that getting done. And again, it doesn't make them a title team, but I think someone like Jeremy Grant is who you might see them go for.
What about a guy like John Collins out of Utah?
Another poor defensive player. I think that's probably the ceiling that everybody's hoping Obi Toppin reaches. Although John Collins is bigger, John Collins can play the center. I don't think Obi can. Obi's a little short, man. Like if you look at him next to some of the other power forwards, and his like frame is so much smaller. John Collins is a lot bigger than him. So, does Utah do that deal? I don't see it happening.
Let's talk about Milwaukee, because there's a lot to talk about from Milwaukee. They've been, well, until very recently, they were relatively disappointing. Everyone thought they were going to come out and just wipe teams, but they haven't really done too well. Damian Lillard's off to a slow start. I know it's a new team, new system, new players to play with, but
and he has to get used to, you know, the time difference set for you know, jet lag.
Stop it. This dude travels every year. They all play in different time zones. That's not what we're doing.
If you got to play in that different time zone for one time a night, Mike, Yeah, I think it's time, Zico. I think it's time for Mike to start traveling the world to understand how time zones really work.
They don't travel the world. They have a 3 hour spread, man. No one's
It
traveling
makes
the
it,
world.
it makes a difference, bro.
That's I agree, but the guy's done it his whole career, and now he's had plenty
No,
of time to adjust to his new
but
diet.
anytime you make a trade, there has to be an adjustment period for teams, and you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, if my memory's failing me right now, but I don't think they had a full. It was a late trade for them, right? And then, being able to, have a full training camp. Did he make it full training camp? I can't remember.
Forget the training camp.
Yeah.
I'm going to go right here, right now. I think that the Milwaukee Bucks traded the wrong guy. I think that they should have kept Drew. I think they're going to bite themselves in their foot for trading Drew and not trading Middleton. I think they should have done everything they could to put Middleton in that deal. Drew got rerouted to Boston, and to be honest with you, Portland GM's a scumbag for doing that. Like making the deal for Lillard, and then you know what? I just took the player that probably guarded you better than anyone in the history of the NBA has, and I just traded to Boston.
And so he can go ahead and guard you all season.
Yeah, good luck getting past him. Like it was the most like cutthroat move I've ever seen. Like you think that like at some point they're gonna be like, you know what, Lillard, thank you for doing all the things you've done for us. We hope you win the title. It's like, no, win one now. Like it just blew my mind when I saw this happen. And I think Milwaukee messed up. I think the fact that they traded Drew hurt them. I would have loved to see Drew, Lillard backcourt, and Giannis on that team. Middleton right now is struggling. He's having one of the worst seasons I've ever seen him have. He's averaging 11.4 points. All his numbers across the board are down. His turnovers are up. He's a shell of himself. If they're going to flip anyone to get pieces to balance this roster out, it has to be him. I just don't think anyone's going to want him watching him.
But his value has dropped right now.
Exactly. I don't think anyone's going to want him at this point now. So
if you're Zach LaVine, do you want to go?
Stop it. LaVine ain't going to Milwaukee. Not from Middleton. It's not going to happen. But
no, we're not talking about just straight up from Middleton. But I'm saying, if you're Zach LaVine, would you want to go play in Milwaukee alongside Giannis?
I think you want to, but the whole aspect of this team right now is, they don't have depth. They don't have a third star, so you don't have the depth to trade for someone like that. And if you got your team and trade for Zach LaVine, and this is what you're left with, that's not winning. That's not beating Boston. That's not beating Philly to me at that point. You're gonna have to compete with Philly.
They need to add. I agree. I think, and I mean, they're on a 4-game win streak. I think they'll put it together. I think they'll get better. But with that said, I do agree, Zico. I think they should have kept Drew Holiday. I think Drew Holiday's underrated. I think if you watch their playoff games, he's the motor that makes them go.
And he's come up big. He scored he scored in big games. He's made big plays on the offensive end.
And all these teams have point guards who can go get buckets, and Drew Holiday is one of the better ones at guarding them. So yeah, I agree with you. When I first heard it, I thought they had gotten rid of Middleton, and then it all started rolling in. It's like, So I agree. I think Middleton is a good player, but I would have kept Drew Holiday. I'm big on defense, so.
I am too. Like Middleton, the old school Middleton defensively was amazing. And just that, since the injuries he's had, he's fallen off a lot, and he can't chase faster guards anymore. They used to play him at shooting guard and Giannis at the 3, which is crazy when how big that team used to be. But he can't chase guards around. He's now guarding 3 men and still unsuccessfully, because the league's getting younger and faster. And if he can't move his feet, you're going to need someone who can. And I think that's the hole for this team. If they're going to be playing against Boston in the playoffs, I just don't see how they're going to be able to match up. You could put Giannis on Tatum, but who's going to be guarding Jaylen Brown at that point? And, if Lillard is nullified by Drew Holiday, I seriously worry about this team's depth, because they also lost Grayson Allen, who was a really key player for them as well. I feel like they gave up a little too much to make this deal work. And I love Lillard. I love Giannis. Those are 2 of my favorite players for the last 10 years. I just don't think it's enough to win it for them.
Yeah.
So question for you guys: How much how much you guys think a rookie coach plays a factor in the way the team is performing?
I didn't get why they fired Budenholzer. I don't think they should have. I think if they
To
knew,
hire a rookie head coach?
yeah, I think if they knew they were getting Lillard, I think they probably wouldn't have. But you know, the guy won a title for him. I get you want to go a different direction. I'm just like worried that, you know, with Giannis and Lillard getting older, it might affect.
I'm gonna say they're one of the older teams in the league too, so it's weird. I mean, you're not in the rebuilding phase, obviously, if you went and got Lillard. So I don't know why you try to restart with the coach. But again, I think they'll get it together. I think they're definitely a top 4 seed in the East. I think they're definitely going to get out of the first round of the playoffs. I mean, Lillard's not going to continue to shoot this bad. He's going to adjust to his time zone. And then they'll start going. I mean, Middleton, he's getting 20 minutes a game right now. That'll come up. They'll start getting a rhythm. They'll start getting into it. But at the end of the day, I don't think they're better than Boston or even Philly. Although I think Philly's the better matchup. I think Boston's going to be the best team in the East.
I really thought when they hired that coach, Giannis was gone. I thought like, oh man, they're gonna blow it up. I really thought that team was gonna blow it up when they hired a rookie coach, and they're gonna just try and rebuild somehow and get as many draft picks as they could. And I was really thrown off by the Lillard trade to begin with. I was excited for it at first. Again, I wish it was for, you know, Middleton instead of Holiday. But the work that Boston did just kind of really cut the wind out of the team, you know, to have that happen. So they got to make some more moves. There's obviously still time for them to do so. So we'll see come deadline. Maybe they're one of the players.
I don't know. I don't remember. What was their defensive rating last season? Do we know?
I know they're one of the top teams, but the only thing they did have was issues with health, which affected it a little bit. But
They're the 25th rating. They're the 25th right now. Their defense rating is 25th in the NBA. That's crazy.
They were a top 5 defense last year.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's not all obviously Drew Holiday, but I think a large portion of that is.
I think I remember a stat of when Drew Holiday, Giannis, Middleton, and Brook Lopez before they were the best rated defensive team.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Lopez is a year older. I mean, it's not like he was doing anything crazy, and I don't think he's fallen off any really. He's still doing the same thing he's been doing. But yeah, they don't have any perimeter defense the same way that they did before.
Yeah, no, definitely the team's not the same team. You know, trading Drew away plays a big factor. Yeah, let's see how it pans out. I just don't see it being as like Mike said. I just don't see it playing a big, you know, getting them back to the NBA Finals. Right now, Drew being in Boston, and as a Laker fan, I hate to say it, but Boston looks really tough.
Yeah, but again, they are on a 4-game win streak, starting to turn around. Maybe keep that going. They're in first place in their division. You just heard us go through that division. It's pretty weak. So that helps a little bit. Indiana's there. They're probably the only good team. Cleveland, I said they overachieved. So I don't think that's too many hurdles for them to continue to stay at the top of that division. But minus a big move being made, I don't think they're getting past Boston.
So the question is, if you're Milwaukee, we talked about putting Chris Middleton on a trading block, right? Who do you think is the right player to fill that Drew Holiday void, but as well as
I was going to say trade him for Drew Holiday.
But so who's that player right now that you think that can come in for Chris Middleton that can kind of close that gap that Drew left behind?
I'm going to say a type of player, not necessarily. I don't have a player in mind, but you need a Alex Caruso, Austin Reeves type player who's going to be under the radar guy who can hustle, run, and just go all out and just make his money that way. I don't think you need to add scoring to the team. So even And again, not saying this player, just the first one that comes to mind, a Patrick Beverly type player. You just need somebody who's going to be able to go out and guard guards.
I think Caruso is a realistic trade option for them. We all know he's going to be available. My only issue becomes, do they have enough to get Caruso? Because there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be trying to get him. So
I mean, if you're putting Chris Middleton up, because if you get rid of Zach LaVine and you're bringing in Chris Middleton instead, you freed up that 2-guard, 3-guard slot, right? The 2-3 slot. And you trade Caruso and another player, because money wise, Chris Middleton's making $29.3 million. Caruso's only making 9.4. So Chicago's gonna have to throw another player in there. Question is who from Chicago's roster will Milwaukee want?
I have a trade I think that would actually help both teams. I don't like, which we'll get to them later, I don't like what the Memphis Grizzlies did this offseason. I am a huge Marcus Smart fan. I don't think he was the right player for them to go for. He's a shooting guard / point guard. And I think that they're trying to put Desmond Bane at small forward and play Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, and Ja Morant together when Ja Morant gets back. I think that's too small. I think Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart are both great defenders, but I don't think it works. I think that they might be able to entice Memphis to trade Chris Middleton for Marcus Smart. And then they'll have a traditional small forward next to Bane so that Bane can actually chase shooting guards. It's going to cost you draft picks, and they're going to have to use another player to make it work. But that could be a trade that, if I can't have Drew, I take Marcus Smart.
What about a 3-way trade here? And it makes sense money wise. I just can't see what it would do. But three-way trade, 3-team trade with Memphis, Milwaukee, and Chicago. You send DeMar to Memphis, Chris Middleton to Chicago, and Marcus Smart and Alex Caruso to Milwaukee.
I mean, that's a dream scenario for the Bucks. I just don't think I just don't think that'll happen. So, absolute dream scenario for them just to get, and actually that won't work because you're trading. Oh, I'm sorry, it will work. It will.
Yeah, money wise it will, because Middleton's 29, DeMar's 28, and then Marcus is 18 and Caruso's 9.
Memphis would have to give something else up to make that balance out. So,
which they have a lot of guys on that roster that they could let go.
Yeah, there's options. I think obviously we're dreaming about the best scenario for every team.
I think realistically, Milwaukee's not going to make a move. I think they're going to stay put. I think they'll get it together. And again, I think they'll go into the playoffs in the East and lose to Philly or Boston. I don't think they're making any moves.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them lose to someone else even before they get to Philly or Boston, to be honest. Like all you have to do is nullify one of those two guys, Lillard or Giannis, which honestly, to me, I feel like you could nullify Lillard easier than Giannis. But the way teams are playing defense nowadays, I think they could be beat. Yeah. I don't think they're as good as I think the Knicks might be one of the teams that could beat them in a playoff series.
Ooh.
Tom Thibodeau's old school defense.
I was gonna say probably Orlando could surprise everybody.
A few years from now, they're not quite there. Not to beat Milwaukee. I think Miami and the Knicks could beat the Milwaukee Bucks right now. And
well, Miami's already proven.
Well, I mean, there's also, we know there's going to be some trades, so teams aren't going to look the same at the deadline as they do right now. So we'll have to reevaluate for sure. But I don't think Milwaukee's making any moves.
Well, how about we do this? We'll reevaluate every week, every weekend here on out, Sundays when we record the shows, starting with next week.
Reevaluate. No, we don't have that much time, man.
I'm being sarcastic. I was trying to headway into ending the show right there.
But definitely trade any of these trades we talked about. If they do happen, we should reevaluate at least what we talked about trade wise.
Yeah, we'll get through divisions, then we can talk about any big news that pops up, and then obviously we'll just go and talk about good teams all the time.
So I want to throw this out there. Obviously, this is a Pass First Shoot Later podcast. It's brought to you by the OC Basketball League. Obviously, we're going to try and cater to as many people as we can with this podcast, but I think our first listeners that we're going to get are obviously going to be from the league. So to have some fun with the guys from the league, since they're pretty interactive, and the comments I get on the Instagram messages are hilarious. You guys have no idea.
And comment on YouTube.
Oh yeah, comments, guys. How about this? How about you guys start throwing trade ideas out there, and I'm going to start reading them, on the show. So anybody gives me good trade ideas, Mahmoud's going to have a lot of them. So yeah, anybody who wants to give me trade ideas or, chime in on some of the teams that we're going to be talking about or have talked about, we'll interact with you guys a little bit. We'll read some of it on the show.
Yeah. And then since we are coming to an end, I mean, obviously comment, but more importantly, you got to like and subscribe.
Great job, Mike.
Definitely.
That's the important part. I tell everybody. I keep saying it.
All right, guys, we're going to end the show right there. Thank you guys so much, and have a great night.
All right.
See you guys next week.
Later.
Bye.